people like me. You need people like me so you can point your fucking fingers and say, that's the bad guy. That's the bad guy. That's the bad guy. That's the bad guy. That's the bad guy.
Welcome to the motherfucking relay. We're covering today's top boxing news.
Okay, we'll start with this. It appears that Matchroom's own unbeaten up-and-comer in the women's super bantamweight division, Ramla Ali, is going to be returning to action June 17th on the undercard of Prograis vs. Pato in New Orleans. Source told ESPN the junior featherweight will be on the Regis Prograis vs. Liam Pato undercard at the Smoothie King Center in New Orleans on June 17th. Her expected opponent will be Julissa Alejandra Guzman, as long as Guzman, who is from Mexico, is able to acquire a visa to enter into the United States. It will be the second fight of 2023 for Ali after she defeated Avril Mathy by unanimous decision at the Hulu Theater in February. Last year, Ali made history as one of the first female fighters to box professionally in Saudi Arabia. Ali is also known for her work outside of the ring. She is a model for Cartier and Dior, a UNICEF ambassador, and does non-profit work with her sister's club, allowing safe spaces in women's only boxing classes, which has grown in the United Kingdom. For the past year plus, Ali has split her time between Los Angeles, where she trains with Manny Robles, and London, where she grew up after her family fled Somalia when she was a child. Guzman, 12 wins with 2 losses, 2 draws, and 6 knockouts, 26, last fought this past Saturday, where she knocked out Rosa Diaz Peralta in the first round. It was her first fight since 2021, where she challenged Yamilet Mercado for the WBC Super Bantamweight title, a fight she lost by unanimous decision, but it was a competitive fight. I remember that fight. This is a step up in class from Avril Mathy, I'd say. Even though Alejandra Guzman has 2 professional losses, there's no shame in those losses. Ramla Ali sports a professional record of 8 wins with no losses, no draws, 2 knockouts, 2 recorded knockouts, to Alejandra, who sports a professional record of 12 wins with 2 losses, 2 draws, 6 knockouts, having never been knocked out in 16 professional bouts. Ramla's 33 years old, whereas Alejandra's 26. She's 7 years younger than Ramla Ali, but more experienced as a professional, having last seen action earlier this month on the 6th. First round knockout. It would have been better for Alejandra to get some rounds in the bank. You have to remember that the Peralta fight is the only fight that she's had in the last 2 years. It's the only fight that she's had since late 2021, and it only lasted 1 round. Would have been better if it went a few more rounds for Alejandra, who clearly had ring rust to shake off. Ramla Ali, comparatively, has been a lot more busy. She fought 3 times last year, and she's already fought once this year. This is a step up from Avril Mathy, make no mistake. Alejandra Guzman poses more of a threat to Ramla than Avril did. This could go sideways if Ramla's not careful. Alejandra Guzman, mid-range to inside, exhibits very good punch placement, short hooks in the pocket. Ramla don't want to fight her there. I don't think she should. I think this is one of those fights where Ramla has to elect to box instead of punch. I think that Ramla, fight by fight, has done a very good job of developing a good pro style, sitting on her punches and doing damage, but it doesn't behoove her to try that with Alejandra. Alejandra is the bigger puncher of the two, and mid-range to inside, she can do some damage. We saw that in the Yemi Mercado fight 2 years ago. 2 years later, she's not as active. She's only fought for 1 round, just 1 round in the last 2 years. Ramla has to use that to her advantage. Ramla, who has generous physical dimensions for a super bantamweight, those long levers. She's got to keep it long and loose and on the outside, staying behind her jab. Careful not to trade punches with Alejandra mid-range to inside. Beat those feet. Careful not to give Alejandra Guzman a stationary target, as I get the sense that Alejandra will be the aggressor, and Ramla, if she's smart, she'll play the defender, fighting off Alejandra in spots. You don't want to sell out every time she comes forward. You don't want to make her job easier. Remember, this is a fighter that's only fought for all of 1 round in the last 12 months. You want to make them work for their meal. Make them move around, set up some shots, cause them to burn energy whilst trying to get within striking distance of you. This is a risky fight for Ramla Ali. You almost get the sense that Ramla Ali may be targeting the WBC title. She might be. Alejandra Guzman would service as a common opponent between Ramla Ali and Jamie Mercado, who still is this division's WBC champion, coming off another successful title defense over Kurkwashe Chiwandire. She successfully defended the WBC title against Alejandra Guzman 2 years ago. 2 years later, she's still champion. Is this an acid test for Ramla Ali to see if she's ready to challenge the likes of a Jamie Mercado? Is that why they're considering putting her in there with Alejandra Guzman? Well, they've got the right idea. If you want to be ready for Jamie, you've got to prove you can beat the Guzmans of the world. The Alejandra Guzmans of the world, though it's easier said than done. This is a step up in class, a step up from an Avril Matthew. Alejandra's never been stopped, so there's not much chance of Ramla knocking her out. And Alejandra, at least to me, seems the bigger puncher of the two. Thus, it doesn't behoove Ramla to punch with Alejandra. She's got a boxer. Stick and move, using a jab, straight punches from the outside, staying mobile. I like the fight. It's going to be a good fight if they make it. We'll see. In men's super lightweight news, ahead of this weekend's fight between Romero and Ismael Barroso, former champion Alberto Puello named WBA 140-pound champion in recess. Romero versus Barroso will fight for the newly vacated title. Ridiculous. The idea that Romero could become the latest champion crowned at 140 pounds. The WBA has rendered Alberto Puello its super lightweight champion in recess as it attempts to resolve his status with the Nevada State Athletic Commission. BoxingScene.com confirmed Wednesday that the WBA changed Puello's championship status for failing a performance-enhancing drug test last month. The WBA consequently has sanctioned the 12-round bout between Romero and Ismael Barroso for its vacant 140-pound crown. Can't say they didn't see this coming. I told you that's what this would result in. That's what they were up to. Romero of North Las Vegas, Nevada, and Miami's Barroso will headline a Showtime Championship boxing tripleheader this Saturday from the Cosmopolitan in Las Vegas. It's all too convenient for me. Puello posed a greater challenge for Romero than Ismael Barroso. Unbeaten Puello, right, the then champion. Right. Instead, Rolly's going to be fighting 40-year-old Barroso, who is the WBA's mandatory challenger in a super lightweight division. The native Venezuelan was scheduled to fight on the Puello versus Romero undercard, but he was chosen to replace Puello as Romero's opponent once Puello tested positive for clomiphene. It's the same stuff they found in Conor Ben samples. The WBA also ruled that the Romero versus Barroso winner must face England's O'Hara Davies no later than 120 days from Saturday. Davies is the WBA's second-ranked contender in the 140-pound division. They're saying this now. But in between now and 120 days from now, if Gervonta Davis decides to fight the winner of this fight, what do you think? You think they're going to stop them? If he decides to move back up to 140 pounds and he decides to fight the winner of this fight, you think the WBA will remove their sanction? I don't be daft. If Puello's B sample provided to the Voluntary Anti-Doping Association comes back positive for clomiphene, he likely will be stripped of his title. Puello has a hearing scheduled for May 17th with the Nevada State Athletic Commission regarding his temporary suspension. Clomiphene is usually prescribed to women who struggle with infertility. Clomiphene can act as a performance enhancer in male athletes as well, as it increases testosterone levels. England's Conor Ben previously tested positive for clomiphene.
I heard you say that, you see you and Tank running it back in the future. I'd assume that's at 140. Tell me why. Tell me why you think Tank would want to run it back with Rolly Romero.
2 reasons. He beat me, right? That's one. And 2, there are 3 reasons. It sold like beyond like hell the first time. I mean, that's the reason number 2. And number 3, he's had a belt at 140, so he's a 140 pounder. So you're gonna make a lot of money against a guy you already beat, and you already had to bud the division. So, isn't that a good enough reason to fight me again? Oh, and this dude's going to sell the hell out of your fight? Ain't that it? Now, if you don't fight me, now we know the real reason why. Because, that last fight was very difficult for him. And I know by far I've been the most difficult person in his career. The most difficult fight of his career. And, he said himself, I punch harder than everybody else he's ever faced. So, and that's in his entire life, he said. So I mean, there'd be reasons not to make it, right?
I like it.
But from his side, I mean, he beat me, right? So I mean, that's a good enough reason to make the fight again, right?
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely.
You see what the end game is for Rolly. Rolly, who in all likelihood, he's gonna stop 40-year-old Ismael Barroso, who has been stopped one or two times before. It all just fell into place too neatly for me. Puello got in trouble right on time for Rolly to end up fighting an older fighter who's been stopped two times before. Now, in all likelihood, now that Puello's out of the picture and Rolly's fighting Barroso, it's that much easier for Rolly to become a champion, as ridiculous as that might sound. And I feel like this is a brazen example of chicanery behind the scenes. Call me a conspiracy theorist, if you will. I don't care. I think all of this was a clandestine effort to put the WBA title in Rolly Romero's hands. But Puello, he's too much of a banana skin for a limited fighter like Rolly, so they got him an older guy who's been stopped before instead. Adding the WBA title to Romero versus Barroso doesn't make it a better fight, you know. Doesn't make it any more interesting. Just seems like you guys manipulated the situation to where it's easier for Rolly to get the belt now, but it doesn't actually make it a better fight. Doesn't make me think any higher. This doesn't make Rolly a good fighter. The night of the fight, people over there at ESPN are going to be doing a card of their own. Yanni Beck will be defending his WBO title for the second time opposite the Ring Canada's own Stephen Butler, and I'll be watching that. Adding the newly vacated WBA title to the equation doesn't make me think highly of Rolly. It just seems like he's a manufactured champion, a paper champion. This is all about getting a belt in Rolly's hands so you have an excuse to do another Gervonta Davis fight. That's what this is all about, either next or after next. Consider that Gervonta Davis currently holds a WBA title in the men's lightweight division, a secondary title. Consider that as we speak, the WBA may be waiting out the outcome of Haney versus Lomachenko before they decide to order Gervonta to fight the winner of that fight. And do you think he's going to fight the winner of that fight? Do you think he's going to use that WBA title to get either Vasyl Lomachenko or Devin Haney in the ring, depending on who wins? I don't. I think he'd sooner chuck that belt in the air, move back up to 140, and fight the winner of this weekend's fight, which in all likelihood is going to be Rolly Romero, because he's cheaper. It's cheaper than fighting Devin Haney. It's cheaper than fighting Vasyl Lomachenko. It's not as risky because you beat him before. You knocked him out. You're not running the risks in a rematch with Rolly that you'd be running in a fight with either Devin or Vasyl Lomachenko. It's an in-house fight. We all know how much the people at the PBC love those in-house fights. You know, the PBC aren't above staging pointless rematches that no one is asking for. I mean, who is asking for Stevenson versus Fonfara 2, or Leo Santa Cruz versus Abner Mares 2, Wilder versus Ortiz 2? Who is asking for that? But what about O'Hara Davies? What about O'Hara Davies? You think the WBA would strip Rolly to give the belt to this guy? They're not. And just in keeping with the theme of all things lightweight, Shakur Stevenson on fighting Tank Davis. He's the cash cow, the A-side, so it's all up to him. I don't know that Gervonta Davis will ever share the ring with Shakur Stevenson, but if I had to bet, it wouldn't be next. Calling Gervonta Davis the clear A-side, Stevenson said their potential fight would have to be entirely contingent on Davis's call. Complicating matters, of course, is that Stevenson is promoted by Top Rank, which is a rival to Premier Boxing Champions, which backs Davis. I'm ready right now to fight Davis, Stevenson told TMZ. But I think it's depending on what he wants to do. He's the cash cow. He's the A-side. You often hear Gervonta Davis's core supporters say just that he is the cash cow of that division. Some even believe that he's the face of boxing, though if he is, that puts the responsibility on him to make a fight with Shakur Stevenson happen, to make a fight with the winner of Haney versus Lomachenko happen, that if he is the clear A-side over all of these fighters, the onus to do those fights and do those deals is on him, the offer. We don't know what his situation is. Who's promoting him, Tom Brown? Or is he back with Leonard Ellerby? Who'd be the one in charge of facilitating a deal between Gervonta and these fighters? He can pick and choose right now. He's at that point. He's like at the Floyd Mayweather point where he can go, I'll fight him, I'll fight him, but I'll wait to fight him. He's got that type of leverage right now, so it's all up to him. Nothing but respect to what he just did. I respect it. Stevenson, 25, is coming off a 6th-round knockout of Shuichiro Yoshino earlier this month.
That was last month.
So it is true. If Gervonta Davis is the cash cow, anywhere in between 135 and 140 pounds, the onus to do these deals is on him, and it's unclear as to whether or not he's a network and promotional free agent, because he's still fighting on Showtime as if nothing happened, as if nothing changed.
In many ways, nothing did. Devin Haney, ahead of his upcoming fight with Vasyl Lomachenko, says, I hold the keys to the lightweight division.
At least for the time being, he does. And if he ends up beating Vasyl Lomachenko, what will Gervonta Davis do? Will he elect to use his WBA baby belt to get Devin in the ring, or will he leave the division to have a rematch with Rolly?
You know the answer.
I don't watch any of the guys in the lightweight division, said Haney recently. Soon enough, the eyes of the boxing world will be fixed upon the 24-year-old champion on May 20th at the MGM Grand in Las Vegas, Nevada. Haney will look to turn back Vasyl Lomachenko, currently pegged as a sizable favorite. Haney's size and youth advantages are expected to be too much for Lomachenko to bear.
It's a pay-per-view.
It will be both Vasyl Lomachenko and Devin Haney's pay-per-view debut, and it's going to be interesting to see what kind of numbers that brings in, because depending on what they are, Gervonta Davis may, in effect, run out of excuses to not fight the winner of this fight, whether it's Vasyl Lomachenko or Devin Haney.
What if it does just under 200,000 buys, or just north of that? Those are the kind of numbers that Gervonta does.
Should Devin Haney unambiguously push the Ukrainian out of his way, Haney is well aware that he'll have a long list of challengers awaiting him. But despite his 4 world titles presenting a beacon to his enemies, and regardless of his competition hurling innocuous threats in his direction, Haney has no issues with reminding his foes that until he's knocked off his high horse, he remains the division's top dog. I don't care to focus on them because they've got to go through me. I hold the keys to the lightweight division.
So if Devin wins, he stays champion. Will Gervonta Davis use his WBA baby belt to get him in the ring? Will he fight him? Or will he move up and wait, leave the division where Devin holds all the keys, to box Rolly again?
You can apply that same formula to Vasyl Lomachenko. If he wins, ask that same question. You know the answer to it. We all do. What is likelier to happen than not?
He's fought fighters that have never even been on pay-per-view before. Fighters like Isaac Cruz and Rolly Romero.
I don't anticipate that the fight between Devin and Loma is going to do astronomical numbers, but they, unlike those fighters, can say that they have been on pay-per-view before, eliminating any excuses as to why Gervonta shouldn't fight them.
Isaac Cruz was never on pay-per-view before the Davis fight. The same applies to Rolly Romero.
Well, I'm beating a dead horse. You guys know that just as much as I do. What I think is going to happen is they're going to pay O'Hara Davies to stand down, step aside later on this year so that Gervonta Davis can fight Rolly for that WBA title if he wins
This weekend.
That's what I think the plan is.